My name is Espen Barth Eide. I am the Climate and Environment Minister of Norway. Oh, there are many. Of course, we have geopolitical confrontation and we have weak states and all the old problems. But we also see that climate and climate change and everything that flows from that is becoming a security challenge in itself, that it can exacerbate conflicts that were already there and in principle also produce new ones if human beings choose not to cooperate but to fight over ever scarce resources. And it's actually an increasingly recognized nexus between climate and environment. I'm very happy to see that the SIPRI is stepping up its important work on identifying what those can be. It's also something that Norway puts a lot of attention to in the Security Council, just like Sweden did when they had the Security Council seat. So it's high on my agenda as it is on the agenda of the defense and foreign ministers. Well, I think for every decimal of global warming that goes up, we will have more tension, more conflict, more problems related to states not being able to provide key services, food shortages, livelihoods that will be undermined, forcing people to flee. You will see climate-induced migration both within and across countries. That means that new groups will come into contact with groups that are already there in different parts. We see that water beds are being depleted. We're seeing that areas where you could have sort of fertile soil is now turning into deserts. And all of this is a perfect storm that creates a lot of challenges. It does not mean that it necessarily has to lead to more conflict. Because of course the alternative is good solid cooperation, but the problem is that often the countries that are first affected by this are also the countries that are least able to manage the consequences, whether it's a drought or a heavy flood or some other extreme weather event. It tends to exacerbate an already dire situation. And right now we're seeing also the effect on food supplies. We have the acute effect of the war in Ukraine, but we also have the long-term effect of depleted livelihoods and areas in which you can no longer produce because you lack the water or because the heat is too high. So just when Ukraine cannot export crops because they're in war, you're also seeing the same thing happening in India because of the climate crisis. So of course these two things interact, and it's really not the time to continue to have human produced problems. We have more than enough in solving those that were climate related. Well, I'm tempted to say almost all actors, because you actually need to do something with the climate and nature crisis itself, which is what we're here to do at this conference. But you also need to work more specifically with the actors in a particular conflict area, you know, to really try to integrate an understanding of how climate change affects that particular place, what you can do about it, how you can integrate adaptation measures into a peace building strategy, for instance, maybe have some kind of foresight of what you expect to be happening so that you prepare for change rather than just see a recurrence of the same problem over and over again. So I'm happy to see that in more and more mandates from the Security Council there is a specific reference to these issues, to climate change issues. The Council has not been able to come up with a general statement of security and climate change, which I deplore, but it still has been able to point it out in specific context. So I think, for instance, people who are in the peace mediation business need to, even more than today, factor this into the work that they are doing. And when you look for solutions, which is typically the way out of a conflict, you factor in the transformation that unfortunately has to happen in order to adapt to a climate change that's already happening. And the insights we now get on on predicting the effects of climate change should then be made available for those people who negotiate the peace solution, for instance. But the main contribution, of course, is to try to stop global warming in time so that we don't have too many of these cases, and also to bring the security angle into that quest. Last thing I would like to say is that this is also about energy transformation. If we have any real ambition to curb global emission before it exceeds 1.5 degrees, we need to transform all our energy systems. That means produce renewable energy, but also distribute and learn to use renewable energy, because having it is not enough. You have to use it in all kinds of appliances and industry and housing and agriculture. And that's a good thing. But of course it will also lead to winners and losers, because some people are invested in the fossil economy. They will lose. Some people will be the winners of the new economy. They will win. So that in itself, the transformation cost or the transformation effect can also create new tensions. And on the geopolitical level, we will see that countries that have become rich because of oil wealth, and only that, they will wake up one day and ask what happened to their wealth. And if they, for instance, not to name any particular country, have built their social contract in we pay, you shut up, you will probably see that people will stop shutting up when the government stops paying, for instance. So I think it's a very important work that SIPRI is doing. I have been supporting it many times. I used to be a board member of SIPRI and tended to speak up in support of that investment in research. And I think it was very good that it was ready for Stockholm Plus 50, because it brings two communities together. One which is more prone to listening to what we can call the physical science, which we need to, because without that we will neither understand the problem or the solutions to the climate crisis, but also they get sort of the social and security studies perspective in, because these two communities need to interact more, because one has not really been so much aware of the other, but that has to change. And thanks to SIPRI, we are now a little bit closer to integrating these two worlds.